Today we are going to have the second part of the Red Heifer Prophecy. If the previous time I showed you a series of news having to do with the latest that has happened referring to this, today I am going to show you the other three given again from the Temple Institute. And pay attention. Pay attention because yes, they are saying things that we have already seen, but they add other things that is necessary to be known. Look, the first of those news is the following. In quest for lost biblical traditions, red heifers arrive in Israel. An integral part of ancient temple rituals and a signal for the Messiah's upcoming arrival, the red heifer holds great importance in Jewish tradition. Stock breeders hope to preserve and cultivate rare breed in the Holy Land. Notice this is extremely important because this is not only about importing cows, but also to be able to generate them there, in the Holy Land. Therefore, even more possibilities of finding a red heifer. A crowd of 300 people arrived at Ben Gurion Airport over the weekend to witness an unusual sight, the unloading of a crate housing 5 red heifers. Notice 300 people went. The carmine bovines were donated by evangelical farmers from Texas and were flown to the Holy Land from New York on an American Airlines passenger flight after a long journey by truck from Dallas. So the journey that these cows have done is impressive. According to Jewish tradition, a kosher red heifer has a reddish-brown tone with no discoloration, and its ashes are used for ritual purification of Tum'at Hamet, that is, an Israelite who had come into contact with a corpse. The ritual purity obtained through the ashes of a red heifer was a necessary prerequisite for participating in services at the ancient Jewish temples. Notice the importance of the red heifer. Tradition also suggests that the birth of a kosher red heifer signals the arrival of the Messiah and the forthcoming construction of a new temple, meaning the third temple of Jerusalem. Upon their arrival in Israel, the cows were transferred to a farm near Beit Shean under veterinary supervision in the hope that stock breeders will be able to preserve and cultivate the breed and even turn the farm into a pilgrimage center for evangelical tourists coming from all over the world to see the unique bovines. So the evangelicals are going to be used as the suckers or the fools, so you can understand me. You know what that means, right? Well, that they are those that will go for tourism to end up defraying even more all of this, and in consequence the construction of the third temple of Jerusalem, meaning they will be supporting satanic plans, believing they are worshipping God with what they are going to do, and converting the whole world. How sad. The breeders claim this is the first time that red kosher live heifers are brought to Israel, and that until now there have only been unsuccessful attempts to import sperm. Bonei Israel, the group that helped facilitate the entire operation, described a highly complicated procedure owing to Israel's ban on livestock imports from the United States. The concern is obviously disease because animals transmit diseases, but these cows went through over 10 blood tests over the last year. They were in quarantine for 4 months. The organization's representatives told INET, referring to the cows' rigorous testing regime mandated by Israel's Agriculture Ministry. The cows are arriving from Texas, and the area they are used to is hot and dry. We want them to live for many years so that we can tell the story of the red cows. We want to establish a center where people can visit and learn what a red cow is. How interesting, because they say they want them to live for many years so that they can tell the story. So what is it that they believe, that none of these are going to be the essential pure one to be sacrificed? But meanwhile, what is it going to serve them for? Promotion, no doubt about it. They noted that they see education on this topic as one of several steps toward the construction of a new temple. Notice that they say one of several steps. It is not the only step, evidently. They added That's the 5 heifers that arrived were the only ones they managed to find, which demonstrates the creature's rarity and uniqueness. And doing a review on red heifer searches, I must say to you that, for example, in the year 2015 and 2017, there was people in Mexico and some other place that continued searching for red heifers to be able to take them to Israel. Well, let's see that the theme is a bit strange, right? It's very rare. There hasn't been a red cow here for 2,000 years, and we managed to find several. It's probably a very special thing. The farm will be open to the public within a couple of months, the group said. How interesting. In a couple of months, the visits that they await to see in that place. And here you have the 5 red heifers that at the moment were like this, locked up. And later on, they are in another place that we will see later. Red heifer update. This was the second news that they gave. The 5 perfectly red, unblemished heifers, attention, unblemished, that means without any defects for the moment, that arrived in Israel last Thursday are currently in quarantine in the city of Haifa. They will soon be released to 2 different locations in Israel. One of the 2 locations will be made public and visitors will be welcome. So you can see that not all of them will be concentrated in one place, but they will divide them in 2 places, in 2 parts. One for visitors, and the other, what will they do with the other? Will they continue looking for a new way to generate more red cows through traditional systems or through a scientific way? That's another matter. Meanwhile, the heifers are being well taken care of. If you would like to take part in the feeding and care of our 5 red heifers, please go to such webpage and designate red heifers on your donation. So you can see that here nothing is for free. You pay like a gentleman if you want to donate for you can see what. So they can have a red cow and the satanic plan is completed perfectly. This is the harsh reality. And now the last of these news, after seeing the photographs of where these cows were, is this one. From the Lone Star State to the Holy Land. The Lone Star State is referring to Texas, because on its flag there is a star. Red heifers land in Israel. A Christian farmer in Texas raised the prized heifers, which are essential for priests to serve in the temple. So, there has to be a temple, but there also has to be priests. The priests they have, but the temple not yet. What do they need so that these priests can serve? Well, they need a red heifer to be sacrificed so that a 3rd temple can be built and they can act. In the meantime, they are, well, not for decoration, but nearly. 5 perfectly red heifers required for the ritual purification of those who have touched a dead body arrived in Israel from a ranch in Texas on Thursday, as the Temple Institute continues preparations to lay the ground for the construction of the 3rd temple in Jerusalem. Notice that this is not only about cows. We already saw on the first part of this conference how it is also about plans and about how the temple is going to be built, in which place, and what is needed to be spared of what is there right now. The heifers are all under 1 year old. Yes, all of them are under 1 year old. And if they remain 100% red and avoid any blemishes which would disqualify them, they will each be eligible to be used to create the ashes required by Jewish law to purify those who have been in contact with a dead body, explained the Temple Institute on Monday. This level of purification would be needed in order to allow the Kohanim, the priests, to carry out their work in a future temple. The prized cattle were immediately transported to Haifa, where they will sit in quarantine for no less than 7 days, in accordance with the regulations of the Israel Veterinary Authority. After the quarantine, they will be released to 2 separate locations in Israel, one of which will eventually be opened to the public. The heifers will be fed and cared for at these locations until they can be slaughtered and rendered into ashes from their 3rd year onwards. So, from the 3rd year onwards, if one of these were to be suitable to be sacrificed, that means that there are 2 years left, and 2 years and a month minimum. Therefore, do not expect the third temple to be built before that. We can see there is a margin of time. The heifers were located and brought to Israel with the help of the Bonech Israel organization, which involves both Jews and Christians. Byron Stinson, a Texas rancher and a fundraiser and advisor for the organization, raised the cattle. The heifers were greeted by a ceremony at Ben Gurion Airport. Temple Institute officials Rabbi Chanan Kupiecki, Rabbi Jackie Maimo, Rabbi Yisrael Ariel, and Rabbi Azariah Ariel participated in the ceremony, alongside Stinson and Jerusalem and Heritage Ministry Director General Netanel Isaac. I didn't set out to do this, but right now I am probably the best red heifer hunter in Texas, Stinson told Israel 365 News. The Bible says to bring a red cow to purify Israel, and I may not understand it, but I am just doing what the Bible said. Well, what a way of interpreting and applying a text from the Old Testament to the New one, skipping the whole of Christ's life and redemption. The prophecies came true, and the Jews are back in Israel, added Stinson. Now they need to build a temple. But it's like buying a really nice car. If you don't have the key, you aren't going anywhere. The red heifer is the key to making the temple work like it's supposed to. The farmer who raised the cattle is a devout Christian who was intensely interested in this commandment and began breeding cattle for the trade, according to Stinson. What is a red heifer? The red heifer is first mentioned in the book of Numbers 19, verse 3. When God tells Moses and Aaron, "This is the ritual law that God has commanded. Instruct the Israelite people to bring you a red cow without blemish, in which there is no defect, and on which no yoke has been laid." The Torah goes on to explain how the heifer is processed and burnt and its ashes mixed into sanctified water. Those who became impure due to touching a human corpse would be purified by having the water mixed with the ashes sprinkled on them twice, once 3 days after they came in contact with the corpse, and a second time 7 days after contact. Look at how, just with the numerology, it is enough to see who the red heifer was symbolizing, and they still haven't found out. Yes, it is sad, but they still haven't wanted to find out, and Satan has got them nicely blinded so as to not realize, with all they know about numerology or gematria, that all of this has an application of the times in which the Messiah would appear, he would die, and also when it would all be in his return. They overlook it completely. The Torah relates that a red heifer was brought to Eleazar the priest, the son of Aaron, and was processed for its ashes for the ritual. According to the Talmud, those ashes were used from that moment until the end of the first temple period. During the second temple period, another 5 to 7 red heifers were burnt for their ashes. Maimonides wrote in his compendium of Jewish law, the Mishneh Torah, Laws of the Red Heifer 3:4, that the next red heifer will be brought by the Messiah. Why is the red heifer important? In the modern day, all Jews, including Kohanim, are assumed to be impure with the impurity imparted by a corpse. While in everyday life in the modern day this status does not have much of a practical effect, those impure with this type of impurity are prohibited from entering the temple. Kohanim impure with this type of impurity are thereby prevented from conducting the services required in the temple and would need to be purified with the ashes of a red heifer before being able to serve again, making the creation of such ashes a necessary requirement for any attempt to re-establish the temple in Jerusalem. One exception is the Paschal sacrifice, which can be offered even by those who are impure with the impurity imparted by a corpse, as long as the majority of the Jewish people are impure with this type of impurity. And now the non-Jews and the red heifer. this would not be the first time that non-Jews have helped provide a red heifer to the Jewish people. The Talmud, Kiddushin 31a, relates that a non-Jew named Dama ben Netina refused to provide gems needed for the temple despite the offer of a large reward, due to the fact that his father was sleeping on the key to the box holding the gems, and he did not want to disturb his father's rest. In reward for the respect he showed for his father, a red heifer was born into Ben Netina's herd the next year, and he was able to sell the temple the heifer for the money he would have earned if he had sold them the gems. As always, Jewish things and money, you can see what association they have, such as so many times. But with all of this that they have said, what are they trying to explain? That there can be people that are not Jewish that can collaborate so that the temple can be built, and for all that is necessary around it, even the mentioned before, the red heifer. And with all of this, what do they see? That the same thing that happened in the Old Testament may be feasible so that the third temple can happen. And who is going to support all of this? You can see it. The evangelicals. Yes, this is not only a thing of Jews. This is also an evangelical matter that have fallen completely in the trap that has been laid for them through Zionism and biblical malinterpretations that is leading this world to be submitted at Satan's feet completely, with the exception of God's people that will be denouncing all of these things, warning that all of this is for the Vatican to be placed there, and for Satan to be settled in that place, pretending to be God, to be Christ, with all that it will entail for the world, and especially for God's people. And that must happen. As you can see, there is a margin of time. That is why no one must say that Jesus will come if we are in 2022, in 2024. Well, no, it cannot be. It cannot be because there is still 2 years and some other month so that they can sacrifice the cow and then build the temple. But this must make us think. To be able to do this, some other things must happen before that. Other things that will propitiate the establishment of the temple there. What do you think this is about? Of conflict. And that is what we have shown in the topics of Gog and Magog, and what we don't stop showing in the current news related to the biblical prophecies. And therefore, everything has its own time. But at his time he will come, and he will not delay. And meanwhile, here you have the heifers, that if they knew what was awaiting them, poor things. Yes, time will not delay. Maranatha 2031. The Lord returns, and the signs are there. God bless you.